Hi everybody, Tex-Mex here. Thanks for joining me for another video. Today I'm going to do an accuracy precision sighting in, really, of my Savage B series. Now, Savage made these B series rimfire rifles. They have an A series and the B series. The A series are the semi-auto, so I guess for automatic, and the B series are the bolt action. B for bolt. I assume that's what that means. Now, I've had this rifle for a few years. This one specifically was the Savage B series FV. Now, it has the heavy barrel, and it's got a longer heavy barrel. This is a 21-inch button rifled barrel. I don't know if they make this one anymore. I tried to look online to get the stats for it, you know, just the specifications to put up, and all the ones I found had shorter barrels. I don't know if they just stopped making these longer, heavier barrels. You can find the heavy barrels still, but I think they're 18 inches now, but I'll have to go back and look. But on my quest, you know, I love 22 Magnum. I've said that many times in my videos, and I wanted to try to make another, or put together another accurate 22 Magnum bolt action rifle. I have a CZ that shoots really well, but I was curious about these Savage rifles. At the time that I bought this one, there was even some sort of a discount, or it was a rebate, so it wasn't a terribly expensive rifle to buy. And when I first got it, it came with a synthetic stock that wasn't bad, but the barrel wasn't free floating, and although I can't definitively say this, it seemed that likely the fore end of the barrel, or excuse me, the fore end of the stock might bend a little bit and be touching the barrels in different places when I'm shooting it, because this is obviously, as a heavy barreled, I wasn't going to be taking a lot of standing shots with it. This is something I wanted to shoot from a rest of some sort, and when you're resting it, that's when there's more chance, especially with a heavy barreled rifle, that if your stock is a little soft, it may be touching the barrel in different spots depending on how you're holding or how you are resting the rifle. So I ended up changing out the stock to a Boyds stock. Obviously, there are a lot of different Boyds stocks out there. I can't remember which specific model this was, but it fits the action in the barrel really well. I think I did end up sanding the barrel well a little bit to make sure that it's free floating the full way through, and it is a free floating barrel at this point. And something I really like about the Savage B series, which is, I assume, the same for the A series, is it has these rotary magazines. And these rotary magazines fit 10 rounds. They fit flush in the magazine well, which is very important to me with the rifle that I'm going to be shooting resting. Now, this one does have the adjustable Accu trigger, which I adjusted almost as light as it would go. And like most Accu triggers, it's fine. It's not the best trigger in the world, but it's much better than a lower grade standard trigger in the sense that it doesn't have much creep. And once you pull that front blade back and engage the trigger, it's a relatively clean and crisp break. Now, these came drilled and tapped for a scope. It doesn't have any sights on it. And the original mount, this isn't the original mount it came with. It came with some mounts, and it was a two-piece mount. And when I first put it together, I had a different scope on it. And I did a video a while back where I tested a bunch of 22 Magnum ammunition through it and my CZ. But I ended up switching out the scope on this rifle. This is a Vortex diamondback. I used to have a Vortex crossfire on there. And they're fine scopes for rimfires and things of that sort, but I had this scope on my Ruger 1022 LVT, and I ended up upgrading the scope on that rifle to a nice used loophole I was able to get. And so when I took that scope off, I went ahead and switched it out to this rifle. Now, when I took the scope off, I ended up finding out that the scope base, that two-piece scope base that it originally came with, was loose. And I found, after some inspection, that one of the screws tightening it to the receiver had been sheared off. Now, I know what you're thinking, dear viewer. Well, Tex-Mex, you torqued it too much. That's on you. And possibly true, but I will say I use torque wrenches. One of the things I bought many years ago, because I do mount and remount scopes and things of that sort, and I do mount and remount receivers to different stocks, is I got one of those, I think it's called the fat wrench, that you can set the amount of pounds you want on it for torque. So I can tell you that when I put that scope base in, and I want to say the scope base came already attached. If I did attach it myself, I would have used whatever recommended pounds of torque. So I shouldn't have sheared it. It may have been just that particular screw was a bad screw. Maybe it was bad metal in it. I don't know, but it was sheared. And when I took the scope mount off, I took pictures of it and took pictures of the sheared screw. I sent that off to Savage, and a few weeks went by and I never heard anything. And I kind of wanted to going with this project, so I went online. I found this one-piece mount that seemed to be recommended by a few individuals, came with its own set of screws, and ended up putting that on. And then after I did that, about another half a month went by, maybe 2 or 3 more weeks went by, and then Savage ended up sending me a new set of mounts and screws. So now I have an extra set. But that being said, I sort of lost faith in them, and this mount seems a little more sturdy, so I'm glad I switched it out anyway. And honestly, if you're interested in one of these rifles in the B series or the A series, and you're getting some of the heavy barreled ones that don't come with the sights, from what I could see on the website, their new mounts are single piece mounts. Maybe they realized there was a problem with those 2-piece mounts. Maybe people wanted these longer single piece mounts because they're a little more versatile, but that seems to be what's standard on these rifles now. Now, since I switched out the scope, I have not sighted it in. So what I'm going to do here today is I'm going to sight in and then test a few different ammunitions here to see which one this rifle likes. I've got a few different weights here. When I shot it a while back with my CZ, and it didn't do as well as the CZ, surprise, surprise. Although now I'm wondering, was that mount loose already at that point, and was that affecting my accuracy, which it may have been. But anyway, back then it seemed to like the lighter stuff, and it did very well with the Hornady 30 grain VMAX and with the Winchester polymer tip VMAX, both 30 grain. So it seemed to like that lighter ammunition. I think it did well with some of the heavier ammunition as well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot those 2 30 grains. I'm going to shoot some Norma, Remington, and Maxi Mag. This is those are all 40 grain, and I'm going to try some of the Federal 50 grain as well. I'll sight it in with the Remington. It doesn't really matter. It's just trying to get it as close to bullseye as possible, and then we've got some smaller targets, and we'll do a group of 10 with all of them and see which one it likes the most. So let me go ahead and get everything set up, and we can start with our sighting in process. Okay, so we're gonna start shooting. My targets are down there. I don't know if you can see them down there. Sorry for the wobble. It's hard to see through all the bushes, but don't worry, I've got a clear line of sight here for my actual rifle. I don't have to worry about any of these bushes deflecting my bullets, but it's down there at 75 yards. As I said in the previous video, that just seems to be the distance I like sighting in 22 Magnums. If I'm going to start shooting 150 yards or plus, I would probably move on to a 22 Hornet or something of that sort, or even potentially 223, depending on what I'm hunting for. If it's rabbits, then yeah, 22 Magnums just fine, even out to 150 yards. But I just like the 75 yard sight in. It keeps it flat shooting for a bit after that. So if I sight it in at 75 yards, I'm pretty good through about 125 yards, which is usually about what I want for this particular caliber. Now, this Vortex scope is a variable scope. It goes from 4 to 12 power, and it does have an adjustable objective in the front. I like the scope a lot. It's a discontinued model. They do make adjustable objectives now, but they're always knobs on the side. I always kind of like the front adjustable objective, but that's just sort of a personal preference. I'm not saying they're any better or any worse. It's just sort of what I like. But let's go ahead. Let me see, get this thing. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah, it's a good position there. Let me put the magazine in. Now I'm shooting at a larger target because, like I said, this isn't sighted in yet. I shouldn't be attempting to sight this in at 75 yards. So let me say that right off the bat. This is not the smartest way to sight it in, because typically you should start at 25 yards and see where you're hitting before you start going out there, because very likely I won't be on the target at all. But I just put a brand new piece of cardboard on my, basically for the targets I use in this particular range, I get old pallet, I staple cardboard to the pallet and then staple targets to the cardboard. And this is a new piece of cardboard. So if I'm anywhere on that pallet, I should be able to see it. So that's the only reason I'm confident enough that I'll be able to sight it in at this distance, or else it's not really a great way to do it. Oh, let me put my hat over here. Okay, so let me put my ears on. I've got the magazine in, and let's shoot our first round and see how we are doing. And I think I missed the entire target. Yeah, I don't see any hits on there. Like I said, this isn't the smartest way to do it. But let me shoot another one, then I can look around the cardboard and see if I'm hitting anywhere on the cardboard and start making adjustments from there. Oh yeah, I already see the hit on the cardboard, so let me put the safety on. It's hitting low and to the right. So let me go ahead. Let's see here. That's probably not enough, but I'm gonna start small and then adjust it a little bit more as we get closer to the bullseye. So let's see if that adjusts our point of impact at all. Oh, I have the safety on. Yep, still hitting very low and to the right. Actually, I'm aiming for the center target on that big square target. And if you can see on my target camera, I hit the target on the low right. So still a lot more adjustment to do here. Let's see here. I did about a half turn of the knob, moving it to the left. I'm going to almost do a complete turn on the knob, raising the point of impact. So round number 3. Let's see here. Okay, I need to focus this. Might be the rear focus. Let's see here. I don't think my parallax is quite set right. There we go. That's much better. Okay. So now it's still to the right. It's still hitting way to the right, but not way too high. And since I did a full turn, I'll just do a half turn back, lowering the point of impact. And it didn't seem to change the windage at all. That's sort of concerning. But then again, I do believe this is a clean barrel, so the rounds are probably settling in right now too. Once I get it closer to bullseye, I'll fire a few more rounds to settle the barrel down before we start testing ammunition. Okay, look at that. We're getting there. Still a little high. Wow. Yeah, that's way too lucky. Let me fire 5 more. If they're all there on target, then I'm going to be extremely happy. But let me load in. Well, let me just load in a couple more, and then we'll go ahead and start testing out the different ammunition. Let's see here. Yep, I think I got it on. I think I've got it dialed in. That one was a little high, but that's fine. That's good enough. That's good enough to work on our smaller targets. That being said, you know, since I'm going to be switching between 30 to 40 to 50 grain ammunition, that's probably going to change the point of impact considerably, but should be good enough. Should be good enough. Maybe I should put bigger targets out there. No, you know what? We're going to stay with those small targets. Let me go ahead and set up the camera, and we'll just continue with this Remington, and we'll shoot 10 rounds at a smaller target and see how well it groups. Okay, so we're starting off with the Remington. It is a 40 grain jacketed hollow point. I'm going to shoot it at the top left target. Let's see if we can keep them all in the circle. pulled that one a little low, but not terribly. Just slight jerking this, slightly jerked it. Okay, it looks like it was doing pretty well. So let me take out the magazine. I'm gonna let the rifle cool off a little bit between each ammunition I use. Since we're on the 40 grain, let's stick with the 40 grain and we'll move on to the CCI. Let's see, here it is, a jacketed hollow point, 40 grain as well, and see if it continues to stay consistent. Okay, let me get my ears on. Looks like my target camera's battery is running low, so after this round, I'll go ahead and switch that battery out. I'm gonna give this rifle even more time to cool off. But once again, this is the CCI Maxi Mag 40 grain hollow point. Let's see if it does as well as the Remington, which did impressively well. Ooh, low and to the left. Sort of interesting. The eye relief on this diamondback isn't great. I may have to look into how to adjust that. Well, I mean, those two bullets hit very close to each other. Once again, it's always a lesson. Rimfire, well, I mean, it's true for more than just rimfire. Both 40 grain, both hollow point, jacketed hollow point, and hitting in completely different spots of the target. It's always the lesson that find which ammunition your rifle likes and sight it in for that specific one, because if you start changing it out, even if it's the same grain and weight, well, that's the same thing, the same weight, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have the same point of impact. Okay, that one was a little closer to the bullseye. But you can tell they are grouping low and to the left compared to the Remington. Oof. Doesn't seem to like this ammo as much. Is this 10? I think that's 10. Yeah, it's 10. Okie doke. Do I have another 40 grain here? Yeah, the Norma. And I haven't had much luck with the Norma out of any of my rifles, but I've got some of it, so that's going to be what we shoot next. And now the Norma jacketed hollow point 40 grain. Let's see if the Norma does a little better than it has historically for me. Whew. Well, so far it seems to be doing okay. Not any better or any worse than the other two. Well, a little better actually, but we'll see. Yeah, very promising. Oh, I didn't feel like I jerked that one. Although, as I say in all my videos, user error is always an issue. Unless you've got the rifle in a vise. Yeah, no, it's doing pretty well. If these mosquitoes would leave me alone, that would make this a little more pleasant. That's 10. Well, I think that's 10. As long as I loaded 10, that's 10. Well, for once, this Norma 22 Magnum that has not done well out of most of my other firearms seems to be doing pretty good out of this Savage. So let's go ahead and set up for the next ammunition. And now we're loading up the Hornady 30 grain VMAX. Let's hope our point of impact isn't too terribly different and that we're still semi on target. Let's see here. Get the first round loaded. Okay, a little high, but still on target. Ooh, did not feel like I jerked that one. That's 10. Looks like it did pretty well. Not surprising. This Hornady VMAX does very well out of a lot of my firearms. Let me change the target camera, and I'm going to do the 50 grain next and then end with the other 30 grain. The only reason is I expect the 50 grain is going to drop significantly. At least that's my experience with some other testing I've done. So if I shoot at the top target and it drops, that's still, hopefully it'll still be somewhere on paper. So let me go set up the camera and then we'll move on to the Federal 50 grain jacketed hollow point. And once again, we're moving on to this Federal. It is a jacketed hollow point, 50 grain. one of the few heavier offerings for 22 Magnum. There's a couple of manufacturers that make a couple of different heavier rounds. Some are meant for self-defense, but not many that come in heavier than 40 grain, but this is one of them, and I like it, so I'm hoping this rifle likes it too. Woo, really low and to the left. Hopefully the target camera is picking that up. Yeah, it's hitting the top of the bottom target. But if I remember, I set my camera to look down a bit because I knew that might happen. Not grouping terribly well. Well, yeah, not bad, but not great. Okay, and that moves us to our last ammunition. So let me get that set up and then we can compare our target. And our last contestant is the Winchester. This is another 30 grain polymer tip VMAX. I guess it's similar to the Hornady. Now I'm going to shoot at the top right target because even though that's what I was aiming the Federal at, it was hitting low, and it was basically hitting the lower right hand target. So leaving the top right hand target clear for the 30 grain, and I obviously already saw that the 30 grain is hitting pretty much on target, so it'll just be easier to do it this way. Let's go ahead and see how well we do. Ooh, it was doing well until that one. And I didn't feel that I jerked it. It's not liking this ammunition very much. Yeah, I see that now and then when you have ammunition, it'll group, but it'll group consistently in a couple of different spots. And here I have it grouping slightly high into the left of the bullseye and then much higher into the right of the bullseye. And see where the last of the rounds settle. Yeah. Seems that it's starting to prefer the high and to the right. See, and that one grouped with the group that's on the left. I just don't know what to make of it. Huh. Well, regardless, it does not seem to like this ammo very much. And that's should be 10 because I'm out. Magazine is empty. So let's go get our target. Before we start taking a look at our target, let me say it's a great rifle. It does seem to be doing relatively well. You know, I don't remember what I paid for it. I really don't, but it wasn't much. I want to say it was around 300 with the rebate. And for a large, heavy barreled rifle with an Accu trigger, it was quite a deal. Obviously, I spent more money putting the Boyd stock on there. Does the Boyd stock help? You know, I never did a test. The only way to know that for sure would be to switch the stocks and do a long shooting test. And that's just not something I'm going to do. I like it in this stock and I'm going to leave it as is. Like I said in the beginning, I just felt that the other stock was a little soft, and that if I was putting a lot of pressure on it while trying to shoot as the rifle is in a bag, that potentially the barrel might be, well, that not the barrel would be moving, but that the front of the stock would maybe start touching the barrel in different spots, which would certainly affect your accuracy because it would affect the harmonics of your rifle and it wouldn't be consistent between shots. So that's why I wanted a laminate stock where I could make sure my barrel was free floating the whole way, and I can tell you in this one it is. I'm actually kind of curious about the A series and how well it does and how well it cycles with 22 Magnum. Maybe at some point I'll find someone that has one that'll lend it to me and I'll do a test with it, but for now this is what I have. Let's go ahead and see how we did with our ammunitions. Okay, now I have the sun to my back. That may help see the target a little bit better. But the Remington, I sighted it in for this ammunition. It did very well with it. I didn't have any flyers. They all stayed relatively on target here. A nice little tight group. The Maxi Mag, not as well. I mean, it's not a terrible group. I had a couple that hit low and one a little bit to the left. Other than that, they seem to group up relatively nicely, just not as well as the Remington. The Norma, like I've said in the past, Norma 22 long rifle, the TAC 22, the match grade stuff, does well out of some of my rifles and pistols. I haven't had luck with their 22 Magnum at all in anything I've shot it out of so far. But this time it did really well. I mean, it got 9 of the 10 shots in a really tight little group and 1 flyer. Was that me? Yeah, probably. I don't remember flinching. I don't remember pulling that shot, but you know, there's always a chance. I've been out here shooting all morning. Unless I had this rifle in a vise, I couldn't eliminate user error completely. All I can say is I don't remember flinching or pulling that shot that much, but the rest of the ammunition shot very, very well. So for once, I did well with the Norma. The Hornady, not too bad. This one usually shot a little bit better, but I did have a couple of flyers. The rest were relatively tight. Much better than the Winchester 30 grain polymer tip D-Max. It just started hitting all over the place. And if you see while I'm shooting, it looked like it was grouping a few tight here and then the rest were kind of falling over here. I've had that happen with some rifles and with certain types of ammunition where it's almost like you'll get 2 separate tight groups. But either way, yeah, that one's just not going to work out of this rifle. It doesn't seem to like it very much. And then the 50 grain Federal, remember I was aiming here and because of the drop, it dropped all the way down here. And all in all, it's not a bad group. I mean, not as tight as, say, the Remington, but certainly on par with the Maxi Mag. And if you take that flyer into consideration on the Norma, it's about the same. The groups aren't necessarily that much better. So really, at this point, if I really wanted to see which one of these ammunitions it likes, I mean, you could do a 75-yard, 75-yard test. It'll help you at least eliminate some that you know your rifle does not like, that it's spreading like a shotgun pattern instead of a rifle pattern. take those out of the equation, grab the rest, and then maybe go out to 100 yards, maybe 125 yards. And then at that point, you might start seeing differences between the few different ammos that are doing well, and one may be doing better than the other. In my case here, gosh, you know, I don't think I have a ton of this Remington left, but I do have a few boxes, and I have a few boxes in the Norma. They're both almost exactly on target. The Norma seemed to be hitting slightly to the left, and the Remington seemed to be hitting just slightly high. But I think with both of those for now, it'll help me use this rifle for some fun target shooting with friends and family. And like I said, this isn't really a hunting rifle. I mean, I can hunt with it, you know, small game, things of that sort, but because of its weight, it's not something I want to be lugging around. This is something that I'll set up on a table and put some targets, you know, way out in the distance, and have fun shooting. But as always, I hope you had as much fun watching as I had shooting. I love shooting 22 Magnum, and this is always educational for me as well, because I can always go back and look at my videos, and trust me, I do that sometimes. So I'll try to remember which ammunition did this rifle like, which one did I have it sighted in for, and then I can just go back to the video and go, oh yeah, that's right, I like the Remington, and I had it pretty much zeroed. So but please, y'all, take care, stay safe, and I will see you in the next video.